My name is Captain Chris Jones. I'm the Administrative Coordinator for the Marshalltown Police Department Citizens Academy. We're here at the introduction opening of the Citizens Academy tonight, and we have volunteers, nearly 40 volunteers that are going to be introduced to the activities of our police department in the city of Marshalltown. Tonight we have Mayor James Lawrence, City Administrator Randy Wetmore, and Chief of Police Michael Tepper. They're going to give an introduction to some city activities that are going on in Marshalltown. Later this evening we're going to have an instructor, Brad Mosseth, who's our Marshalltown Police Department Community Outreach Officer, and he's going to discuss some information technology that our department has available to the officers, and then discuss our outreach programs in Marshalltown.
All right. Just tell me the importance of this meeting tonight.
The Citizens Academy and the Marshalltown Citizens Academy is a 10-week program where we show the day-to-day operations for the Marshalltown Police Department, the officers that are involved, and what we do as a department for the city of Marshalltown. And we spread the awareness of the activities and resources that we have available and the personnel that we have available, and provide some insight about our day-to-day activities. We have a great 10 weeks planned for everybody with different activities and different officers and presentations. But I kind of want to give you a little bit about me. My name's Chris Jones. I'm a captain with Administrative Services. Even though I don't teach a whole lot of the classes, I'm going to be your point of contact by email or by phone. If you need anything, please feel free to ask. I'll try to be at all the meetings. We're going to try to start at 6 o'clock every week on time. One thing that I did notice is some people were abiding by the permit parking across the street and walking quite a ways to get up here. Don't hesitate to use that parking lot that's permit only during the sessions. So when you come in here, try to park as close as you can and walk in. If you don't know yet, the restrooms, there's two separate sets of restrooms in the building. There's two outside this door down the hallway. And there's also two more downstairs by the elevator. So if you walk down the stairs, you go through the hallway straight ahead and there's some restrooms. I did bring some water and soda. It's in the blue cooler. I did not bring any coffee. That's something that we've had in the past. If somebody's interested or has any ideas or would like to request something, please let me know anytime, and I'll do that during the week. I didn't bring any coffee. It hasn't been very popular, but if you'd like some, let me know and I'll go get some. I tried to have a variety of pop. I know how important the Coke and Pepsi debate is sometimes, so there's a mixture of everything in the cooler. And also some caffeine-free and diet things too. Tonight we have a good introductory night, and we're going to have a nice tour, some pizza about 7 o'clock, and I have some great guests here. We do have one change, and I do apologize for that. Our communication portion of the night, which is the second half of the session, the presenter was unavailable this evening, so I have another presenter that's going to come. Officer Brad Mosseth, who's the Police Department Community Outreach Officer. He's also involved in our information technology portion of our department. Is going to come give you a talk about some of the technology that's available to police officers on a regular basis. It is interesting. I think everybody needs to know how extensive much of our technology is, and with it being in the vehicles and how we're using it, it's very, very expensive, but we try to use it to make it our job as efficient and effective as possible. So, without, I guess, further introduction, this is Chief Michael Tepper. And once again, if you have anything or need anything, please let me know.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
How's it going?
Great.
We are very happy to have you guys here tonight. And I think this might be the largest Citizens Academy class that we've ever had. So we're all excited about that. I guarantee you're going to have a blast during the time that you're with us. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the police department. I'm going to give you a tour of our facility. You're going to learn some other things. Usually we save the best speakers for last. But tonight I'm very fortunate to have my bosses here. So we're going to give the best speakers first tonight. So first I'd like to introduce Mayor Jim Lawrence. He's been the mayor since January, so he's fairly new. He's very involved in the community, and we're very fortunate to have him leading our community. So, Mayor Lawrence, I'll turn it over to you.
Maybe Chris should have gotten a coffee because you may have trouble staying awake during my speech. And I know he will during Randy's speech. No, it's a pleasure to welcome you tonight to the Police Academy. I think you're going to find this very interesting and very challenging. I think it'll give you a whole new admiration for the work that the police do and an appreciation for the difficulty of the job and the roles that they have to play as mediator and disciplinarian and counselor, all while dealing with just a wide variety of people. And it's a very difficult job, and I truly think it takes a very special type of person to perform that. And I think as you go through this, you're going to see even more that they do have a very difficult job and under very difficult circumstances. I have gone, Chief, through the Police Academy 15 or 20 years ago, and at that time I think it was probably one of the earlier classes, and it's been refined quite a bit. So you're going to have an excellent program. I would tell you my experience. So with the portion of it where they did the field sobriety test, we met on a Saturday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning in the basement of the police station. And as I remember, my memory is a little foggy on it. We were asked to play a board game or a card game, and at the same time they would give you a liquid refreshment to drink. And then at various points they would do the pencil check, the eye test with the pencil, and then they would do the walking the line, and finally, after it was all over, they took me home in a police car, and I believe it was around 10 o'clock in the morning. My wife was appalled. Two small children see their father poured out of a police car and helped to the door by police officers. So that was the only time that I can remember going to bed at noon and sleeping off a couple of drinks. So it's a very rewarding experience. I think you'll all enjoy it. Again, I think you'll gain a whole new appreciation for the quality of individuals that we have in the Marshalltown Police Department and the job that they do. So as you go through it, though, please feel free to ask questions. The officers that I've met have all been very willing to talk about their experiences and answer questions from those of us in the public that aren't involved in law enforcement. So again, thanks for signing up. I think you'll be great ambassadors for the police department, and I hope you enjoy it.
Okay, good news, bad news about the drunk driving portion of this training. Okay. There is going to be a drunk driving portion of this training, but since Jim's class, we no longer allow the students to actually participate anymore. So we have found other people that are more than willing to volunteer their time to drink free beer purchased by the police department. So, but you will have that opportunity later. So next, okay, first I got to tell you, the person that's about to come up here is a Kansas Jayhawks basketball fan. But we won't hold that against him. Even though he's wearing the colors tonight and all that stuff, we won't hold that against him. This is his favorite time of year with the basketball tournament started. But my boss, Randy Wetmore, is here tonight. Randy's been the city administrator about 4 years. Randy does a phenomenal job for our community, is another great leader in our community. And I'm just very fortunate to have the opportunity to work with Randy and learn from Randy every day. So I'll turn it over to my boss. Everybody be nice.
You can tell the difference between the mayor and the administrator. He has no notes. I need notes. So there's a difference right there. I've been here 4 years. I've actually been in local government for about 35 years. Worked in 8 different cities. Worked in 5 different states. My dad was a city manager back in Kansas for 36 years, working for the city, worked his way up to be a city manager. And my folks could never figure out why I couldn't keep a job more than 4 or 5 years when they stayed in the same place at the same doing the same thing. But I've enjoyed moving around. I was actually in this class a couple of years ago and went through it, and people said, well, why would you go through this? It's because every city does it just a little bit different. Also, then I could find out what they were teaching, and so then when I get calls from citizens, I had a better idea of how we did it. And I think this will give you an opportunity to also learn how the city does things and what the procedures are and what their processes are, and it is a lot of fun. But the police department is just one little bit of what the city does. We have the fire, we have the compost, we have the streets. I'm sure some of you called in about the streets with the potholes. I've hit the potholes, only I can't call in. But there's some big potholes out there, and hopefully we're getting those down. So we have the wastewater plant, we have the wastewater distribution system, we have the storm drain system, we have the city council, we have commissions and committees, we have parks, we have recreation, we have finance. So we're like a little small business which has a budget of about $50 million a year to do things, and that also includes being able to do some large projects, such as in the last couple of years we've done about $13 million worth of street work, which I'm hoping some of you have noticed that difference. We're also spending this year about $7 million on the sewer system. So we do a lot of capital improvements as well. And when you think about it, we have all these different levels of government. Local government is the one that touches you on a daily basis in some way. But it's probably the one that you know least about, because everybody knows about the federal government and everybody knows about the state government, but not quite so much about the local government, which actually provides you with your quality of life. And I've always looked at what the city does as being in the quality of life business, because we do touch you every day in some way, and our job is to make the place where we live better. That's our sole purpose, is to make where you live a better place, the best we can within the resources we have. Kind of a simple thing. To me, it's been a calling. It's almost like being a minister. To me, this is one of the most important things we can do, is to make your life as good as we can when you're living here. That's what the city does. Now, getting those resources, sometimes people don't like to pay for that quality of life, so the council has to determine how do we divvy up those resources we have. And everybody has a thing they like. Some want us to spend all the money on streets. Some want us to spend it all on parks. Some of that money has to go to the wastewater system. So we have to divvy up those resources, but in the end, it's to make this place better. And the lengths we will go to make the place better was exemplified last Friday night, when you can get the mayor and the police chief and myself and 9 other people to dance in front of what we were hoping would be 100 or 200 people, ends up being 500 or 600 people. We start off in January not knowing how to do this without screwing it up, to then to be able to dance for 3 minutes in 2 different dances shows the commitment that people have to make this a better place. When you can raise $40,000 in one evening by having people take 20 or 30 hours out of their life for 3 months to learn something like that, is really a pretty special place. And I've worked in, like I said, 5 different states. This is unique, where you can get people willing to do that. And the only reason they did it is to make 13th Street better. That's the only reason. It wasn't, hey, this will be a blast to get in front of 600 people and be a fool. That wasn't it. Believe me, that was not it. But to me, it just shows what people are willing to do. And we hope that when you're done with this class, that then you will be willing to volunteer for some of the things that the police department has available. Because without people volunteering and without people helping, the city isn't the same. And we have like 100 volunteers at the library. If we didn't have those people at the library would not be the same. And those are just where people volunteer within the city. We have people who volunteer for all kinds of things, and that's what makes us different here. People do not have turf that I know of. People are willing to step up and say, okay, I think that's a good idea, that's a good idea, and I'll do that. So having 40 people willing to learn about the police department, I think is something special. To get this many people willing to take, how many hours is it tonight? 3 hours? Yeah. 3 hours for a number of weeks is pretty darn special. Because you got other things you'd rather be doing, or you could be doing. So I want to thank you for taking the time. I want to thank you in advance, because I'm sure some of you will volunteer for some of the opportunities we'll have. And Marshalltown's a really good place, and someday somebody might ask you to dance. So if they do, be sure to raise your hand and step up and do that. So.
Both the mayor and Randy mentioned a couple things about community and volunteerism and how government works and all that stuff. Really, we can only be as effective as the community allows us to be. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that tonight from the police department standpoint. But I've been here almost 3 years. I've worked in two other communities as a police officer. I'm just thrilled to death to be here. Marshalltown is a great community, and my wife and I are very proud to call Marshalltown our home because of people like you. It's not normal for people to want to get involved and volunteer the way things happen in Marshalltown and the way people step up in Marshalltown. So we've been very fortunate in that regard. About 1.5 years ago, you might remember, we were trying to raise some money for our canine program. And we were in dire straits. I mean, we were at the point where the canine program might go away if we don't raise some money, okay? A program that had been in existence at the police department since the early 80s. And I told my staff that we were going to have to raise $60,000 to make it happen. And I think a few of them wanted to throw stuff at me, but they didn't. They looked at me like I was crazy. We raised that $60,000 in about 9 months. It's just amazing what this community will do and how they come together to support worthy causes. And that's what happened the other night with the dancing event. I'm not going to dance for you, I'm sorry. If you came here to see me dance, that's not going to happen. I've retired. What I hope to learn is how we can better serve the Marshalltown community and how we can provide quality police services to you all, our customers, okay? Because I kind of look at, some people might disagree with me, I kind of look at government as being a customer service business, but I'll tell you up front that our customers aren't always right, especially in the police department. The unique thing about customer service in the police department is usually we're dealing with two sides of an issue, and we can only make one side happy. So 50% of the community is always mad at me for something, okay? And today it might be this 50%, tomorrow it might be the other 50%. We can't make everybody happy, but we really try.
I'm Noelle Ricks, and I'm here because I'm majoring in criminal justice, so I thought this would give me a good opportunity to figure out my options. So, yeah.
Right. How many people in here have ever fired a firearm? Okay, a few. Usually it's less than that, quite actually, but you're going to get to do that at some point. You're going to get to shoot some of the firearms that they don't even let me shoot, so I'm really jealous. But you're going to have a good time. You're going to get to do a lot of fun things. You're going to get to hear from a lot of our staff members. We are very fortunate here to have a great police department, great staff, well-trained staff. Maybe I'm a little biased, but I really, I've been in law enforcement 22 years, been a police chief for the last 10 years, worked in 3 communities now in Iowa. Know a lot of people in state and law enforcement. I think we have the best police department in the state of Iowa. Okay, and I don't say that just because I work here. I really feel that way because of the people that we have working here. We have a lot, some nice technology. We're going to talk a little bit about our building. We have some building needs, but we have some nice equipment, stuff like that. But equipment and technology doesn't mean a thing if you don't have the people that you need to do the job. And we have a lot of great people here, and we have a great community here. And that helps us do our job better. So A couple people mentioned, well, I watch TV, I watch CSI, that kind of thing. How many people in here have ever watched an episode of Cops? Okay, a lot of people. You would think that that's the real deal, right? It's really not, because those guys are kind of putting on a show too. You know, it's kind of human nature. You get in front of the camera, you start acting a little bit differently. Okay, Cops, and my wife is a prosecutor. We hate shows like CSI because everybody believes that what they see on TV is reality, and it's not that easy to solve a crime, and you sure as heck can't do it in an hour. Okay, most crimes. And all of these great forensic tools and stuff like that you see on TV, a lot of those don't even really exist. They're kind of based in reality. At one point, you're going to see our crime scene technician. She's going to give a presentation, and she's very skilled, does a lot of great things, has a lot of cool stuff that you'll get to look at, but it's nothing like what you see on TV. And the problem with those TV shows is everybody expects us to have that kind of technology. Okay? And even the stuff that does exist that you see on TV, it's so darn expensive that there's maybe 10 police departments in the entire United States that have those kind of capabilities. Okay? But people expect us to have that kind of stuff. And we don't have the money or the resources to do it. And so when we show up to court and we don't have a perfect video and all this DNA evidence to prove what we're saying happened, it's hard for jurors to sometimes buy that the defendant is guilty. Because now people watch TV, they think that stuff is real, they expect us to have it. I started my law enforcement career with the city of Ottumwa, and I was there about 11 and a half years. And the last job I had there, I was in charge of the criminal investigations unit. And I remember working a case. This would have been probably about 2002, so it wasn't all that long ago. But we were surveilling a business that had been burglarized several times, and we had video set up, and we actually captured the bad guy throwing a rock through the window and starting on his way through the building, and then the cops got in a foot chase with him. We ended up catching him. But the nature of surveillance videos, even today, 12 years later, it's kind of grainy, it's black and white, it's dark. It's not like watching a movie, okay? And we went to court and we lost. And a couple of jurors said, well, that video was horrible, it was grainy. I couldn't convict somebody based on that evidence. CSI effect. Those shows were just kind of starting out in the early 2000s. So those are kind of some challenges that we face. A few people mentioned, I want to learn about crimes and drugs and some of the problems that you're facing from a criminal standpoint. And yeah, we do some of that. But as a police officer, about 80% of what we do has nothing to do with criminal violations. And it gets worse and worse every year, quite frankly, because we become basically social workers. There's less resources for people to go to for help. And so where do they go? They call 911 and they want the police department to help them with, my child's misbehaving, what should I do? Or we do a lot of domestic violence stuff. It used to be we had domestic violence advocacy services based right here in Marshalltown. We lost that last year. Okay, so that increases our workload. 80% of what we do every day has nothing to do with what I would call and what you would call real police work. Okay? We also are all concerned about criminal issues in our community, and I understand that. And when I arrived here about 3 years ago, burglary was the big topic. Everybody was really up in arms about burglary, okay? And we still have some of that going on where people are really concerned about burglary crimes. Our crime rates in Marshalltown 3 years ago even weren't out of line for what I would expect for a community this size, okay? Over the last 3 years, and I deserve no credit for this, but over the last 3 years, crime rates have come down significantly. Our burglary rates have come down significantly. Well, we still have some. So every time you read about it in the paper or hear about it on the radio, everybody's thinking, oh my gosh, what's happening in Marshalltown? Unfortunately, every community is going to have some issues with crime. And that's why you have police departments, I guess. Ask any of my cops, they'll tell you 90% of our resources are spent on about 10% of the population. Most people are rule followers, they do the right thing, but we spend most of our resources on a very small percentage of our population. Okay? But crime rates are coming down in Marshalltown. I also remember when I told some of my friends around the state that I was going to take this job, they kind of said, "Are you sure you want to do that?" And the reputation of Marshalltown as being the drug mecca of Iowa and maybe the world is crazy. It's not true. Okay? Do we have a drug problem in Marshalltown? Yeah, we do. But it's no worse than any other drug problem anywhere else in the state for a community our size. What we see on a daily basis in terms of drugs is what I would expect to see for a community of about 28,000 people. I was a chief in Nevada for 7.5 years, 7,000 people. Everybody thinks Mayberry, nothing bad ever happens there. No, same kind of stuff happened there. It's just less volume of it, okay? And we had a drug problem there. We had a heroin problem in Nevada, believe it or not, being so close to the university, okay? So these are issues that every community struggles with. But for some reason, as a community, Marshalltown has tied ourselves to these crime issues and crime rates and drug problems, and that's almost become our identity. And I work very hard trying to make people understand that that's not the real Marshalltown. That's not the Marshalltown that I see every day. Marshalltown I see every day is full of people like you that want to make a difference and are doing great things in this community. Okay? Sometimes the crime issues get the attention, but that's really a small part of what we do every day at the police department.
I'm Karen Reinbarger, and I'm here to learn what actually goes on in our town and what the fine officers of Marshalltown do and what I can do to help support them.
This isn't my police department. It's my great honor and privilege to serve you as your police chief. I work for you, but this is your police department. It's a community organization. And we can only be as effective as you allow us to be. At any given time, we have 5 police officers on duty. Okay, so we can't be everywhere at once, all right? 5 people covering the whole city. Now, when we have an emergency, maybe a domestic violence or a burglary investigation, something of that nature, it takes 2 to 3 police officers to handle that. So now I got 2 people covering the whole city. Okay, we can't be everywhere at once. We need your help. If we're going to be truly effective as a police agency, we need your help. Now, it's our job to do the policing, but we all share in that responsibility. If we want this to be the community that we want it to be, the best community that it can be, we all have to have a responsibility for policing this community and working together. We need you to be our eyes and ears and be willing to talk to us and call us when there's a problem. We can't be successful without your help. It really is your police department. With your help, we're going to be very successful. I think over the last 3 years, we've done a very good job of building some partnerships and collaborations with people in the community and groups in the community. And for that reason, I think my cops have been a lot more effective, and we've seen reductions in crime. We've seen reductions in burglary. We're getting some neighborhood watch programs started back up. We're working with some churches. We're working with some other social service agencies. We work well with area law enforcement to help tackle these problems together in a collaborative fashion. Again, we need your help to be successful. It's also very important to me, it's crucial to me that we're inclusive. The TR interviewed me the first week I was here, and I don't even remember what the exact comment was. Stephanie wasn't here then, so she never misquotes me. Usually paper misquoted me back then, but they didn't misquote me, but I said something about wanting to be inclusive and wanting to reach out to the entire community and make sure that we're serving everybody. And I got some hate mail. They were very upset because they assumed that I was only talking about the Latino community, and they didn't think I should reach out to the Latino community. Diversity is a big part of what we are here in Marshalltown. Diversity is important. It's our identity. One of the reasons that my wife and I chose to come to Marshalltown, and I was very fortunate that Marshalltown chose me and decided that they wanted me to be their police chief, but we also made a choice. Because I had a good job, she had a good job, we didn't have to come. We wanted the diversity. I had lived in Ottumwa for 11.5 years, very diverse community, and I missed that. Diversity is something that we should be celebrating, embracing. I have a lot of ideas about what might be good for Marshalltown and how we might make police better in Marshalltown. But you all are living in the neighborhoods, and you all are doing business here, and you all have been here a lot longer than I have. Okay? You have good ideas about what we can do to better serve you. I need to hear those things. And we're willing to hear those things even when it's a little uncomfortable. Those are the most important things. I like those kind of conversations because that's where I learn the most, okay? You know, when somebody calls me up and says, hey, you guys are doing a great job, thank you, those are easy conversations. I like it when somebody calls and says, hey, I'm kind of upset right now because you didn't do what I thought you should do, okay? And that's where we have the difficult customer service kind of conversations, and we try to explain what we're capable of and what we can do and what the law allows us to do, those sort of things. But sometimes, I'll be honest with you, we make mistakes. You know, everybody expects a police officer to be 10 foot tall, bulletproof, and never do anything wrong, okay? They're human beings just like the rest of y'all. We have good days, we have bad days, we have family problems, we have work problems, okay? Sometimes we're on our game, sometimes we're off our game. Everybody tries real hard to do the best job that they can every day, but we're human just like everybody else. We're going to make mistakes. And when we make mistakes, I own up to them, we try to fix them, okay?
I'm Nancy Park, and I'm here because a friend talked me into it. And he isn't here yet, by the way. But I'm here because I want to know how the police work, and I like to support them.
You know, I love what I do. I'm passionate about what I do. This is not a job for me. This is a way of life. And some people might say that's kind of unhealthy, but that's why I got into this job. And we got 43 other cops that are passionate about what they do. If you don't like what you're doing, then find something else to do, right? I ask them to be passionate. And I ask them to become passionate because we're going to encounter a lot of people that have a lot of different kind of problems. And we might not understand the problems. We may think, man, why is that woman keep going back to that guy? Or, you know, why can't that mother control her child? Those sort of things. We don't understand what's really going on. We have to be compassionate to these folks. We have to be compassionate to each other. What I ask them to do is provide the same level of service, regardless of situation, that they would want their loved one to be given in a like situation. It's kind of, it sounds easy, but it's kind of a high bar to live up to because, again, the cops are human, and we have good days, we have bad days. But we try to serve with passion and compassion every day. I think that's important. If we can somehow accomplish that, we're going to be successful every day. I truly believe in building partnerships and collaborations. That's why I like opportunities like this, to get to talk to people, have a group like this, go through 40 people to go through a Citizens Academy. I talk to other police chiefs around the state. They're lucky if they can get 10 or 15. We've got 40. We had to turn people away this year. That's amazing. Okay, people want to know more about the police department. You're also going to get an opportunity after this is all done. If you want to volunteer for the police department and do some work with the police department in different capacities, we're going to give you that opportunity if that's something you're interested in. We have a great volunteer policing program, volunteer police group. It's 30 strong, roughly, Chris? 36 people right now. They do a lot of great things. We're trying to find more work for them to do. A couple years ago when Ragbri went through, they were very busy that summer. Last summer, not so much, so we got to do a better job of finding them some stuff to do. But what I've asked Chris to do, because he's in charge of that group, is let's look for other opportunities that maybe are great community opportunities. Don't have to be directly related to the police department, but it's a great opportunity for us to get out and interact with people, and maybe you can be our ambassadors about stuff. A lot of places think community policing is just putting a cop on a bike. That's not what we do here, okay? What I ask our folks to do is get out and interact with folks, get to know them, ask them how we can better serve you, and try to solve problems. We want to prevent problems. We want to be proactive as much as possible. It's hard to be proactive when you're struggling with staffing levels. Right now we're one police officer short. Everybody always asks me, we should have 43, we're at 42. Everybody always asks me, is that enough cops? It's not. We should probably have about 50. I mentioned a couple times, we got great people, got great community. We're pretty blessed with technology. Marshalltown, believe it or not, they were one of the first communities in the state of Iowa to have computers in their cars, stuff like that. We're kind of blessed with technology, but the burden of technology is that stuff gets old quick, gets outdated quick, and we're kind of at the point right now where we need to upgrade some of that stuff. Where do we need help? Budgets. Budgets, budgets, budgets. Has anybody heard of property tax reform? Property tax reform is killing us, okay? It's killing us. I know that If you're in the business community, you think that's a good thing. And I'm not here to argue the pros and cons of property tax reform, but what I will tell you is that property tax reform is going to make it very difficult for cities and counties in this state to provide even bare minimum services. Okay, so then you got to start asking, what kind of community do we want here? And some communities are already making the decision to get rid of programs that are not public safety related. Well, do we want to live in a community that doesn't have park and rec or swimming pools or trails, stuff like that? Okay, these are the decisions that communities are going to have to make over the next couple years because of property tax reform. I know of police departments that are just cutting cops. Cities cutting firefighters because of property tax reform. The city of Marshalltown manages Marshall County E911 Center, but they provide, that center provides dispatching services for the entire county. Budgets are a struggle there too. How many people have gotten rid of their landline phone in the last few years? Almost everybody has cell phones anymore, okay? So what that means though is when you had a landline, you were paying $1 a month as a 911 surcharge, and that $1 came right back to Marshall County. Cell phones are different. You pay 65 cents a month on your cell phone as a surcharge, but a small percentage of that 65 cents actually makes it back here. It's a very complicated formula, and if I was good in math, I wouldn't be a police officer probably, but it's a very complicated formula, and we're not getting enough of that money back to help us run the 911 center, okay? So now a lot of that equipment in the 911 center, which is very costly, it's getting old, it's outdated, okay? We need to upgrade our 911 center. And one of the ways we might be able to do that is through a new police facility. And you might have heard some things in the community about fire and police department projects. You'll be hearing more about that in the coming months. That might be a good way to upgrade some of that equipment. We're going to need some help. We're going to need ambassadors to get out and talk to the community about why a new police department is important. And I'm going to show you our building tonight, and I think after you see our building, you'll realize that, yeah, we do need something else. Recruitment and retention are an issue for every police department, not just Marshalltown. Everybody wants the best of the best people in these jobs, right? We want superstars to be our police officers and firefighters, stuff like that. We got to recruit good people. One of my top goals is to recruit more people from this community. Because I think if you're from this community, you're going to care about this community, you're not going to leave this community, and you want to do everything you can to help this community. We're recruiting the same people for cop jobs in Marshalltown that are also applying for police jobs in the metro area. And most of them start at $50,000 a year or in that ballpark, and they have nice brand new facilities. We don't have anything like that. We're starting in the mid to high 30s, and our facility is awful, okay? So, you know, the folks that worked at Fisher, when you were trying to recruit good people to come work at your business, you wanted to offer good salaries and nice facilities and a great work environment, right? It's the same thing for government work. You know, a lot of people think, well, you're in government, you don't need this nice stuff. Well, we're trying to get the best of the best too, and so we can provide a better service. So we'll start the tour now, because it takes a good 45 minutes to get through the building, so especially with the big groups. So if you're ready, we'll just head out the door. And what I hear many times, especially from people that have to come to our building at night, is that it's scary. So scary that sometimes they turn around and leave. Okay, so people that really need help, that want our help, are too afraid to walk into the police department to ask for it because there's a couple knuckleheads standing in there, okay? People shouldn't be afraid to come into the police department. You walk in there, you'll notice there's no public restroom, there's limited space to sit down.
Oh, I know. I got all stuff.
Yeah.
Hello. Josh, you love the kid. Yeah.
No, it's open.
You'd like to do something along those lines.
Several years ago, the city did a study about remodeling this building. And they looked at this space to see if it might be suitable for remodeling. And they found out that there were some structural issues that make it not a safe area. This part of the building, it's not load bearing like it should be, okay? So now everybody's thinking, oh my God, we just ate a bunch of pizza. Run! So in order for us to enhance the structure so it would be safe to turn this into office space, we would have to put a boatload of money into this building to do that, okay? A lot of roof leaks. I'm guessing we got some asbestos up here. I'm guessing there's a lot of things going on up here, okay? A lot of people will ask me, Chief, why do you need a new building? Why can't you just remodel the space, okay? We're gonna spend, we could try to do that. We're gonna spend millions of dollars remodeling this building. And you're gonna, as you walk through the building, you're gonna realize that it's gonna be money thrown away because it's still too small, okay? The police department moved into this building in the early 80s. And at that time, we had 31 employees. We have 62 employees now, okay? So we did a space needs study last year, not to design a new building, not to pick sites or anything like that, just to decide how much space would a police facility our size need just for the number of people that we have working here now, okay? And they figured out that in this building, we have about 22,000 usable square feet that we're using right now in this building. We need 45,000. In its entire history, the Marshalltown Police Department has never had its own dedicated facility. It's always either been in City Hall or it's moved into, does anybody remember what this building used to be? It was a telephone company. Sure. Telephone company, okay? So they've either been in City Hall or they've moved into some other space that was actually built for something else. And police and fire facilities are actually specialty facilities. You can't just move into any box building, okay? And I'm talking about the police department, but the fire department has also a legitimate need. So as a community, we're going to have to make a decision at some point. Where do we want to go with these public safety facilities? Are they important, and should we upgrade them? I know for years the city's been talking about a police station and the need for a new police station. And we've always put it off. We'll do it next year or talk about it 5 years, stuff like that. We're running out of time. This building is literally falling down around us. The basement routinely floods. We got all kinds of issues. We're spending lots of money on heating and cooling because you can't imagine what it costs to heat and cool this old structure that has poor windows and the walls leak, and it's just crazy. Every year that we put that off, those costs increase between 3 and 5%. Okay? The problem's not going to go away. So we can put it off in another 5 years, but it's still going to be a big issue. Or we can talk about remodeling this facility, but I guarantee you, after it's remodeled, you might get 5-10 years out of it, and then we're talking about a new building again, and it's even more money. Okay, so those are all things that the community's going to have to decide.
25. That's probably where the 25 comes from. Yeah.
We're going to walk to the left as we walk into the building. I'm going to show you the interview room, but here's what I want you to hear about the interview room, and you look at it as you walk by. We have one interview room, as I mentioned earlier. Okay, it's not uncommon for us to have 4 or 5 people that we need to interview at a time. We could have multiple cases going on, stuff like that. We have one interview room. The other thing that bothers me the most about that is I don't care about the criminals that have to sit and wait to be interviewed. I don't care about inconveniencing them so much. But picture this, okay? We do a lot of sex assault investigations, a lot of domestic violence investigations, a lot of child abuse investigations. These are all sensitive issues that are difficult to talk about. They can be embarrassing. They can be uncomfortable. And you have to come down and talk to a police officer that you've probably never met before, so that's hard enough. And I don't have a private room that I can take you so you can talk about these difficult things. That's embarrassing. We should be able to provide a comfortable, safe, confidential location for people to come in and talk to us about things that are difficult to talk about. And we can't do that right now. That's just the reality. Okay? We'd be better off putting somebody in the backseat of a police car. And that's not a good option. Okay? So we'll walk in and I'll show everybody. Okay?
Well, I was in the process of doing that. I can even get plenty of time. I was in the process of doing that, but I found out that I can't.
But in many ways, the police department is the public face of our community. Okay? A lot of people in this community deal more with the police department or see more of my ugly mug on TV or in the paper than they probably care to. Okay? But we're the public face of our community. I'll have people that are thinking about moving here, thinking about bringing their businesses here. They'll come down, they want to meet the police chief. They want to talk to me about crime in Marshalltown. What kind of first impression are we leaving for those folks? Ceiling leaks, we got some electronic equipment in here. We fix one ceiling leak, another one pops up. Bad roof, okay? We got big time problems with the roof. As you walk down this hall, you pass some offices. This last office on your left as you were walking by is where our watch commanders work out of. 9 people share that office, okay? You saw the 2 cops sitting here doing paperwork. That's where the patrol officers do their paperwork. So 5 or 6 people got to share that space, okay?
They do it in their cars too.
They can do a little bit of it in their car, but imagine writing a report that's going to take you 3 hours. It's hard to do it one-handed on a laptop in a car. So one officer there is packaging evidence. I mean, there's some things you got to come in for, okay? So this is our processing area. Everybody that gets arrested, they come here first. When we're done, we take them out to the jail. We don't hold people in this building. Some of you might have lived here long enough to remember the story about the gentleman that escaped custody and got up on the roof and tried to jump from one building to the next and died, right? Okay. You can't get to the roof anymore, but you can still get out of this building. Okay, so the circumstances security-wise have not changed all that much. And we just have too many limitations here. So that has to be fixed because it's a legitimate public safety concern. We arrest somebody for murder, you don't want them to get away from us, right?
You want me to address that question about paperwork in the car?
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the reasons that we don't like to do paperwork in the car is because they have to link up to the servers inside the police department, and you may be 4 to 5 words, sentences ahead of time, depending on where you're parked, and how quick that information can uplink inside the PD. So it's really more beneficial and quicker for us to do it in here versus in our car. If it's quick and easy, we'll do it out there. But if it's a lengthy report, like I'm writing on a theft case right now, it's easier for me to come in here and do it, just because it's time consuming. So that's one of the reasons why we don't do it in the car as much as we would like to.
Go Hawkeyes.
This is extremely eye-opening.
Yeah. Up the stairs, we came down. If we would have went up, we would have walked into a workout area, which is a pretty decent-sized space, okay? It's important for public safety people. I think most people would agree to stay fit, take care of themselves, that sort of thing. We do have a workout space. I think that's important. Also upstairs we have 2 evidence rooms. And access is controlled. I can't even get into those rooms, okay, as the chief. So I can't show them to you anyway. But what I want you to know about these rooms is that they're really small. They're about the size of this office. One's a little bit bigger. One's much smaller than this office here. The roof leaks. We can't climate control it. We're running out of space, okay? Some evidence that we have to keep for years and years and years. A sex assault crime, we have to keep evidence for at least 10 years. A death investigation, we keep evidence forever, okay? And there can be massive amounts of evidence for these investigations. We're running out of space. Now, I know some of you watch CSI, right? It's come up a few times, okay? DNA is a big part of what we do, okay? Fiber evidence is a big part of what we do. That forensic type evidence is important, right? So we take in evidence that maybe is covered with blood or fibers or has some forensic value. And now we have to take it into a storage room that has a leaky roof and that we can't climate control. What do you think that does to evidence? Yeah, we can't do that, okay? That's not professional policing. We have great police officers here that work very hard, and again, it's a legitimate public safety issue. We can't take care of the stuff that we're taking in to be able to have successful prosecutions down the road. So far, we've been lucky, but one of these days it's going to bite us. We got to fix that. We got to fix that. Okay? As you were walking down, I was standing in front of a gray door. That goes out into the alley. That's the employee entrance. That's the closest we can get to our building when we have a prisoner. Okay? So imagine, not everybody's happy to be arrested. Okay? They might be under the influence. Okay? Imagine trying to wrestle somebody from across the street or across down the alley when it's icy or whatever to this back door. Okay? Now imagine you're a female civilian employee and that's the entrance you go out of at night into a dark alley. Okay? If somebody wanted to, if they were mad at a police officer for some reason, they know we use that door. Do you think they're going to care if it's a civilian employee or a police officer? They're just going to want to punch somebody out, right? We got to fix that. Right back here, we're not going to go into it because it's such a small room, but there's a women's locker room. We got enough space for about 6, 7 female employees. We have twice that many. Okay, so we can't give them an adequate space to change their clothes and store their equipment, their gear, stuff like that. Down at the end where Stephanie's at, if we went to my left, is the men's locker room. It's a little bit bigger, but it's still not big enough for anybody to store gear and stuff like that. Okay.
And I ran citywide, not just ward-wide. All 4 wards. I just want to catch it here, okay? You get all communicated?
We have enough work for most hours of the day for 3 people. We might be able to get by early morning sometimes with just 2, but there's enough work usually for 3. They got work other than just answering the phones. They've got a lot of data entry, stuff like that. They manage arrest warrants, no contact orders. We have over 900 no contact orders in Marshall County that we deal with out of here. Okay, couple thousand arrest warrants, Dan, active. Couple thousand active arrest warrants out of Marshall County that they all have to manage in here. Okay, tens of thousands of phone calls a year. It's too much work for 2 people. We just have the personnel budget for 2 people though, 24/7. Okay, they're busier and busier every year. I told you earlier, crime rates are going down. Their call load is still going up, and part of it is I mentioned that we're doing a lot of social service type stuff. I mean, a lot of things that we respond to have nothing to do with law enforcement. They got to answer the phone calls for that stuff. Managed by the police department. The city and county split wages. The city pays 62% of personnel costs. The county pays 38%. All of this equipment is primarily funded by the 911 board. And that was the surcharge money I talked to you about earlier. It's not enough for that money to go around anymore. So a lot of expensive equipment. And we mentioned the flooding when we were out in the hall. I mean, we obviously don't want this room to be flooded. That would be a bad thing.
If 3 people call 911 at the same time,
You just got 2 people to answer.
1 person doesn't get answered.
What? Yeah, that's kind of how it works. And if they have a car accident, I mean, they'd be better talking about this than I am probably, but if they have a car wreck, how many phone calls are you going to get on a car wreck?
Oh, probably at least 5.
Yeah. So, I mean, their phones are ringing, ringing, ringing. And so while they're answering the phones, they're also sending police, they're sending fire, they're sending EMS, you know, things like that. And while people are calling in about that car wreck that happened on 30, they're also calling in about the cat in the tree and all the other goofy stuff, okay? This is where public safety starts. This is where the call starts, right here. And many times where it ends, because they got to make sure they get the right resources to the call. So we need to do a better job of giving them the workspace they need to be effective. Questions? Okay.
Speaks for itself.
All right. This used to be the county's emergency operations center. She moved all that stuff out to the sheriff's office 10 miles outside the city limits because of the flooding. Okay. So we haven't had to use an EOC since she moved. I don't know how convenient or inconvenient it might be having her all the way out to the sheriff's office if there's an emergency happening here in Marshalltown. I've told my boss that if something's going on in Marshalltown, I can't be 10 miles outside the city limits. So we're going to have to figure out how that's going to work. But she had to move all of her stuff, operations out there, and I don't blame her. But it was because of the flooding. You know, it was a couple times a year sewage backup, a couple times a year rainwater. Just can't deal with that anymore. I don't blame her. So this is Brad Mosseth. He's our one of our police officers, but he's also like a super genius IT person. So he's going to talk to you a little bit about the technology that we use. So, Brad.
Well, we got
ton of stuff that we use as far as electronics goes. Start out showing you a few of the programs that we use. Down in the comm center, you would have probably seen this program up as well. It's called Mock. And one of the things that this gives us is obviously it shows us where a map of the city. It gives us GPS coordinates and plots them on the map of where each squad car is at. And this is a statewide application. So we get the police department, we get the sheriff's office, we get state patrol, DOT, any other bordering agencies that are on this program as well. One of the other nice things about this is that a lot of people have scanners, a lot of people have the apps on their smartphones anymore that can hear our radio traffic. And there's a lot of things that, for safety reasons, we don't want people to hear. If we're going to go do a warrant check at somebody's house, or we're going to serve a search warrant, things like that, we don't necessarily want people to know we're coming. So we can send messages back and forth to the different squad cars, again, any agency that's on here, with communications operators and things like that. So there's not nearly as much information that we have to manually enter. And then the other part of this that saves us a lot of time is we used to have to, every accident report that we took, we had to put in an envelope and we had to mail to the state after we entered it into our own records management system, so we had a copy of it here. It just sends an electronic copy of these forms to the state, so we don't have to mail it anymore. It can be done instantaneously. It's a huge benefit for our record staff and for the state, because they get the information a heck of a lot quicker than they would if we had to mail it to them. And we have, obviously we have laptops in the cars, and we have inside of the armrest of our cars, there's a printer. It's a thermal printer, but it prints out a 8.5-inch wide paper. So when we get done with the ticket, we can print it out right there in the armrest and take it up to them. So if we had an officer trying to look at a call and get information that dispatch had entered, and say that dispatch is still taking in new information as we're looking at this call, they enter the new information, they close their screen. Now the officer still has it open and they close their screen. It saves the last copy closed, whether it had new information or not. So dispatch could have just typed in, a whole stack of information, and when the officer closed theirs, it saved theirs and just erased everything the dispatcher just did. So we have access to our security camera system. Any kind of mobile device we can access it on. We don't have to be in the building. One benefit we have is the county uses the same system that we use, so we're able to access all of their cameras as well as ours. So we got a lot of other cool gadgets that we get to play with out in the cars too. I brought this just as an example of an ancient radio. Well, it's really not that old. 10 years old probably. But you guys can pass that around if you want. It's really heavy for the size of it. And that radio right there didn't even do a quarter of the things that these radios do that we have now. With our new radios, we can actually, they call it an individual call, iCall. It's almost like a phone. I can talk to a specific officer, a specific car, deputies. They have the same type of radios, so it doesn't block the channel, so other officers can still use the radio frequency.